Welcome to the home team, the show where no matter who you root for, here you're a part of the home team. I'm your host, Wyatt Bagnall, and today we are recapping week 2 of the 2025 NFL season. Crazy week of football, but one of my favorite things about week 2 is we get to really compare and contrast to week 1. And in the first 3 weeks of the year, you try to gather as much information as you can to actually see like what are the trends, what's real, what looks like a bit of an anomaly from these teams. And I think this week we got a lot of very interesting information on that front. So we'll talk about that and as well as just sort of some big picture takeaways for these teams. And we're reaching the point for some of these teams, whether it be you're 2-0, you're 0-2, what games have you won, what games have you lost. We're already reaching the point where some teams are going to have to make some really important decisions and start treating the season a little bit differently, especially with some of these teams heading into week 3. And that's something we'll talk about a lot more on the predictions episode about how dire the situation is for some of these teams, especially the teams that are 0-2. But big weekend, crazy weekend. So let's jump right into it with Thursday Night Football. The Commanders, they went to Green Bay, they took on the Packers, and they lost the game, which I don't think any of us found all too shocking. Or if you did, fair play to you. But in my opinion, this was a game that sort of went the way it was supposed to. Now, some big picture stuff. Apparently, Jaden Daniels came out of this game with an injury. I think we all saw it. He tried to run, got landed on, and he came up a little bit gimpy. But I'm not exactly sure how long that injury is going to last, but it does sound like we're going to see Marcus Mariota in week 3. As for the Packers, they looked really good again. Beat another team that's supposed to be an an NFC contender, and once again look pretty dominant in doing so. I'll say this for the Packers, as I've said this for multiple teams in the past. I do always worry about these teams that just start off really, really strong. Like, so strong that it's to the point that you don't know how they're going to get much better because this is a long season. And what usually happens is they're going to hit some adversity, and I don't like this team. It feels like they may be like peaking way too early. Like this happens every single year, and I'm not sure if that's going to be the Packers, but it is something I like to look out for. Where are they giving their best punch out of the gate, and then teams are going to just sort of figure them out, and then by the end of the year, um, you know, they aren't surprising anybody anymore. So only time will tell on that. But I feel like I see it every year with a team where they come out, everybody loves them, they're kicking ass, and the Packers are doing exactly that. And then somewhere around the middle of the year, something happens, something doesn't go their way, and all of a sudden they just aren't quite able to get that momentum again. So I hope that doesn't happen for the Packers, but they're the team that came out swinging really, really hard to start the year. So respect to them, 2-0 against NFC teams, including a division game in week 1, which that win only looks better after this week. So good for them. Washington, the health of Jaden Daniels is the biggest thing. Um, Take as much time as you need to get him healthy because, frankly, if he's not healthy, it doesn't matter anyways. On to Sunday. So we're going to start off with what might be the craziest game of the day. The Giants and the Cowboys. Cowboys beat the Giants 40-37 in overtime. What do we take away from this game? Frankly, I don't know. The Giants were the exact opposite of what they were in week 1, where their defense wasn't doing a whole lot to stop the Cowboys, and their offense decided to all of a sudden come to life for the tune of what had to be, I believe it was like 500 yards of total offense, something like that. Yeah, 500 yards of total offense. Very impressive for the Giants. You can't hate on that too much, and I do think it buys Russell Wilson a little bit more time before Jackson Dart inevitably comes in. They're doing that weird thing where they bring him in for a few plays here and there. They're like, we have a Jackson Dart package of plays. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. They seem to be doing it just because people are yelling at them and doing stuff like that. So it feels like they're doing it just to sort of get people off their back a little bit, which I don't love that. But I mean, if you're going to perform to the tune of 37 points, then fair enough. However, we do have the issue of the Giants' defense played horribly. But that does come with a consistent thing now that we've seen from the Cowboys. 2 consecutive weeks, Dak Prescott has played very, very well, particularly under pressure. The Giants blitz a lot. They play a lot of man coverage, usually to their detriment because they don't have the kind of corners to really maintain that, especially against CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and, the guys the Cowboys have to offer. But for 2 consecutive weeks, Dak Prescott has played well. Once in a loss, close loss, but one where he probably played well enough to win against Philly. And then, obviously, this one here. I think that's something to really watch. Dak Prescott is a quarterback that he gets a lot of hate, mostly because he plays for the Cowboys. But when he's on and he's having a great year, he really does. He plays up. I won't say he plays to the level like the top quarterbacks in the league, but he plays at the top of the second tier. And if he's going to do that, the Cowboys are going to have a chance. I do get the feeling their defense is just going to let them down. And obviously today was evidence of that. If you're letting the Giants put up 37 on you, that's a problem. But big picture, Jackson Dart gets a little bit more time on the bench. Good for him. It's what he needs. And the Cowboys, they get a win, albeit not probably in the way they would have hoped to. But Dak Prescott's playing well. Seahawks and Steelers. Seahawks win in Pittsburgh 31-17. In what is really a game that was closer than that score indicates, but ultimately what we saw is that the Steelers' defense is still giving up big running plays. That maintained from week 1 against the Jets. So I'm really watching that now. If their defense is going to have people be able to just move the ball up and down the field running the football, that's a big problem because I don't think that offense, even if it is improved, even if you do have faith in Aaron Rodgers, I don't think you're wanting to be in a whole lot of shootouts. And if they're going to be playing like that, that's trouble. So that's something for, once again, next week, next 2 weeks, something like that. I'm going to be watching an absolute hawk on the Steelers' run defense. Jalen Ramsey played really well for them. Gave up one big catch, but I've seen him flash now in a couple of games, and he looks like he still has a lot left in the tank. So that's good for the Steelers. As for the Seahawks, passing offense looks really good. JSN in consecutive weeks is damn near unstoppable. I'm sure that throughout the year, teams are going to really sort of hone in on him and put a lot of effort into taking him away and seeing who else can really step up. In this game, it was Cooper Kupp. It felt like whenever they needed a big completion and it wasn't going to JSN, it was going to Cooper Kupp. So that's a big positive. Sam Darnold played well. And obviously the Steelers had that special teams blunder. And those are things you absolutely cannot do. As far as special teams is concerned, you don't have to be the Cowboys, which I suppose I should have mentioned that for the Cowboys. Brandon Aubrey is the best kicker in the NFL. You don't have to be the Cowboys, though, where it's like our special teams is a legitimate weapon at times. You don't have to do that. But they cannot be the reason that you're losing games. And I would argue that's probably the biggest reason the Steelers lost this game was that blunder. As soon as that happened, they're down 2 scores, and all of a sudden you have to play completely differently. The fact that kick returner, and I know he's a rookie, Caleb Johnson's a rookie, we all get it. The fact that if you are back there returning kicks and you do not know that on the kickoff that is a live ball, that's pretty inexcusable. And I don't know if that's on Caleb Johnson, where he just didn't listen when they told him that, or if the Steelers did not emphasize enough that anybody who is returning these kicks on the kickoff, you don't have to touch the ball for that to be a live ball. As soon as that thing is past 10 yards, like a normal onside kick, it either you have to recover it, or it has to go out of the end zone, or that thing can be recovered. And that cost the Steelers big time, because once you do that, you're down 10. It's in the fourth quarter, and now we're getting desperate. So, huge blunder. And if you're the Steelers, just a frustrating day in general. But credit to the Seahawks. They look like the team that they're sort of supposed to be, where defense looked good, even without Witherspoon. And the offense looked better. I won't say they looked unstoppable or elite or anything like that. They weren't necessarily that, but they looked like a team that had a lot of potential. And as the season comes along and they continue to really coalesce, they are a team that's pretty likely to be dangerous by the middle of the season. Rams-Titans. Rams win 33-19, and I think once again, I don't think any of us are particularly shocked by this. Cam Ward did have an insane touchdown throw in there, like the typical "don't ever throw it" kind of play, where he just running to the right, heaves it all the way across to the left, touchdown. That was a big play. I believe that actually at the time that gave the Titans the lead. Like they played this game a lot closer than I think people expected, and a bit closer than the final score indicates. I think that if you're also the Titans, on top of Cam Ward playing well, you're really getting excited about the rookie receiver, Iomanor. I think that's how you say it, Iomanor, something like that. I'll have to learn that name as we continue to progress here. But I believe they got him in like the fourth round of the draft. He was like the 20th receiver taken, something like that. And it looks like they got a steal because Cam Ward's shown a lot of confidence in him. He's the guy who he threw the touchdown pass to. And if you're able to find a receiver like that in the fourth round where you think that you're like, oh my God, we got somebody with a great rapport with Cam Ward and they're both on the same contract and timeline and all that, like that's good because Calvin Ridley's not necessarily a young receiver anymore. And that's a group that's going to need to be continued to be added on and constructed as the years go on. But if you found one later in the draft, that's great. As for the Rams, defensive line looked great again. I think we have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt at this point. Not that the Rams defensive line is good, but if you're playing against the Titans, I think we just have to expect that you're going to generate some pretty good pressure. And if you don't, it's either an anomaly or your defensive line is not good. But between the Broncos and the Rams, the Titans' offensive line has been pretty thoroughly exposed. Not that any of us should be shocked, but it's just a fact of living. And I feel like the Titans, this is going to be a lot of their year, man. They're going to play close, but ultimately they're just not quite there against a lot of these teams. On to the Bills and Jets. Bills win 30-10, and really, that could have been a whole lot worse, but the Bills sort of, they let up as time went on because no reason not to. Big picture, Josh Allen broke his nose. Not great, but came back, played. He'll be playing again this week. I think they say he's just going to wear a visor or something to make it a little bit tougher for anything to get through and hit him in the nose, which fair play. There's not much to take away from this game. We know that the Bills are way better than the Jets. We know that the Bills are contenders and the Jets are certainly not. I think the thing that was most frustrating in this game was even before Justin Fields leaves this game with a concussion, he was posting like the worst passer rating of his entire career. The week after he posted the best passer rating of his entire career. So it's all about balance, You have one bad, one terrible, and overall we're averaging out somewhere in the middle. So we'll have to wait and see what the Jets' passing offense is looking like because on Sunday against the Bills, it was about as bad as it gets. They weren't tackling well. They weren't passing well. Like the Jets, they just did nothing well. So I think really what you take away from this is the Bills are a legitimate contender, and they are going to really put it on some teams that are not quite there. And in terms of having one big test to start the year, the Jets fell pretty far short of it. So we'll have to watch those two teams. But I was not inspired by the Jets defense for a second week in a row too. Although, unlike the Steelers, I'm willing to give a little bit more grace when you're playing against Josh Allen and the Bills than I am going up against, Sam Darnold and the Seahawks. So as for the Jets, take it on the chin and move on fast. But if you can't be throwing the ball that bad, and as for the Bills, just keep Josh Allen healthy, Other than that, there really wasn't much to see here. This game was over in the first half. Patriots-Dolphins. Another game that was just weird. Very, very weird. What do we take away? Still, the vibes are an all-time low in Miami. Nobody's happy, although the offense looked functional. They almost won this game. Devon Achane looked like he scored the game-winning touchdown, but he stepped out of bounds. And the Dolphins were never able to score again, and obviously the Patriots win this game. Drake May for the Patriots. he is once again he is a player to a game where you're like we can't be doing that, but he does still show a lot of signs of really good play, even on a team that is still sorely lacking in weaponry. So I think if you're the Patriots, you take a lot of solace in the fact that this guy is showing um, a lot of very real promise, and you know you hope that that progresses, and especially as you add talent to the team, that you could have something special. Now you do still have the one major problem of you're in the division with the Bills and Josh Allen, but as we've seen in other divisions over the years, eventually the Bills will have a down year, and if the Patriots have found a guy that's really everything that they were hoping for, they could capitalize. I don't think the Patriots are a playoff team this year. I know that there was some buzz for that, and I know that there's a lot of optimism. And believe me, I have a lot of optimism for the future of the Patriots. But the Patriots are starting their rebuild from such a low point in terms of talent that I think that this is the year where I think about it like the Lions when Dan Campbell took over the Lions, where it started off with they were losing a ton of games. Like they didn't get their first win until around like week 10 or something like that. But they were really, really scrappy and they made them all really, really tough. And then the next year, they started turning those really close losses into close wins. And then they became dominant really quickly after that. I think this is that year for the Patriots where they're going to give a lot of teams a pretty tough time, probably, but come up on the losing end. And I think that, frankly, as long as Drake May is playing well in those games, uh, you consider that in many ways sort of a moral victory in terms of the rebuild. And I know everybody talks about not having moral victories, whatever. When you're a team that is not really competing for the Lombardi trophy, the way you measure success is different. And as far as the Patriots are concerned, they have a lot of reason for optimism. It feels like the Dolphins are heading in the opposite direction. Their defense is terrible. And I was hoping for more from their edge rushers in particular with Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and Chop Robinson, but we're not seeing it. And yeah, that defense is just bad. And it feels like unless that offense is going to be perfect every week, and it's not, this is going to be a long year for Miami. Jaguars, Bengals. Ooh. Look away, Bengals fans. Now, I'll start with the positive for Cincinnati. You are 2-0. You defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-27. And that's it, right? No, nothing else to talk about. Nothing to see here. Except Joe Burrow is going on to IR, likely to miss 3 months with a turf toe injury. This is the second turf toe injury we've seen this year. Brock Purdy got one to a clearly less extensive, like a clearly lesser like extent. Joe Burrow is having to undergo surgery and is basically out until December. By which point, who knows where the Bengals are going to be. There really is nothing else to take away for this game, from this game for the Bengals, except the fact that you're 2-0, but it feels like the sky is falling. I know that there's a lot of faith in Browning as a backup quarterback, but usually that's the kind of thing where you're saying we're really confident in him to go and get us a win or two, or maybe sustain us for like 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. At like the high end, that's what you would want your backup to be able to do, to keep our head above water for 3 or 4 weeks at most. This is going to be the majority of the season. And man, it feels like the Bengals might need to make some sort of a move. Maybe they are that confident. Maybe he is that good. I know the one that I've seen, which I think we all would be deep down rooting for, is that they should trade for Jameis Winston and then let him and Jamar Chase just break every single season passing record just by sheer reckless abandon. Like, no matter what the play is, it could be a run play. We're just throwing it to Jamar Chase still. Jameis is just going to send it. And I don't know if they're really that desperate for it. I suppose it would depend on what the Giants would ask too, but that feels like you might need an answer beyond just what a normal backup quarterback is. And the problem is that offensive line's still not good. I still don't love Zach Taylor as like a guy who lifts other players up. It feels like without Joe Burrow, Oh, the season just might be over before it ever really got a chance to begin, unfortunately. Um, but I suppose we'll have to give it some time, and if they can scrap together enough wins to be around 500, and Joe Burrow gets back, and maybe he gets the chance for like the last whatever 2-3 weeks, if we're being hopeful, um, and potentially push them into the playoffs. I think that's sort of the ideal scenario at this point for them is can we just be around 500 if he gets like if and when he's able to come back this year. Um, yes, I'm sorry, Bengals fans. I mean, there's just really not much to say. There's nothing to really take away from this like from the first 2 weeks now at this point where it's so weird. You got exactly what you wanted where you didn't even have to play well and you're 2-0 and then you just get the most devastating kind of injury possible. Sorry about it. As for Jacksonville, this has to be a missed opportunity, right? We can beat the Joe Burrowless Bengals. I think something that we do have to talk about is Brian Thomas Jr. has had 2 consecutive really bad weeks and some drops in this game and some lackadaisical play. I'd be concerned about that because I mean, you just can't be having that, especially from a dude where they're really dependent on him to be a great player. Like the whole idea with Travis Hunter coming in there also, and I know we'll talk about him in a second, was Brian Thomas Jr. Had a great rookie year. He's a guy who looks like he can be a true number one. And that would also free you up to let Travis Hunter really play number two, play in the slot, do all that kind of stuff. And that also frees him up to play defense. But if Brian Thomas isn't going to play well, now everybody's role is going to be getting messed up here. All the like the play design's going to be getting messed up. Defenses are going to see that over the course of the next few weeks, and especially if it continues. And all of a sudden, I mean, why do they need to devote the same level of attention to him? That's something the Jaguars have to get fixed fast. I know everybody saw that interaction where Jaguars head coach Liam Cohen was yelling at Trevor Lawrence, talking about like put the ball here, that kind of stuff, and Lawrence just waves him off. I do think that's a little bit overblown. We see this all the time. Like, emotions run high, tempers run hot, and I'm sure that they would prefer that that doesn't happen on such a public stage, but we've also seen way worse things than that. So I'm not overall worried about that so much. I'm just worried about the lackadaisical play of the Jaguars and the fact that we're not capitalizing on opportunities, man. When you get a team whose star quarterback leaves the game, you can't lose that game. I mean, you'd think that this team would have learned that when Patrick Mahomes went down in the playoff game and then they lost to Chad Henne. Like, you can't, it's such a missed opportunity. And those are the reasons why teams like the Jaguars miss the playoffs or they continually pick in the top 5, the top 10. Like, they let these moments that are like, they're served up to them. Capitalize, take it, seize the moment, and they just never do. And it's why I just have such a hard time trusting Jacksonville. On a positive note, at least you did put up 27, but it's tough not to be bummed by that result for the Jaguars. As much as Bengals fans should be bummed, Jags fans are bummed too. I feel like nobody left this game happy. But as for Jacksonville, you're in an easier division. The Texans are floundering, obviously. We'll get to that. But so the season's not over for Jacksonville by any means. But, man, 2-0 would feel really good if you're the Jags. And unfortunately, we're sitting here 1-1, and we're 1-1, and all of a sudden, we lost to the Joe Burrow-less Bengals for the majority of the game. So, not great. Next one, 49ers Saints. I've never been so happy to be wrong about a prediction. I picked the Saints to be able to beat the 49ers preseason offense, and I was wrong. I'm not sure if I overestimated the Saints or just underestimated the 49ers and their like prowess to overcome injuries at this point. It's yet another feather in the cap of Kyle Shanahan where another quarterback in Mac Jones comes in and he's able to scheme it up even without the weapons, and they do a lot of great stuff. Kyle Juszczyk also left the game early with a concussion, so that was really fun. Ben Barch, one of their guards, leaves the game with an ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a bit. So the injuries just kept on coming for San Francisco, but it didn't really matter. And I don't think that actually has much to do with Spencer Rattler. I want to give big credit to him for the Saints. He actually played quite well. Just really competitive, feisty. He made things difficult all day. So big credit to him. That guy, he might get benched at some point for Tyler Shough, but I don't think it's going to so much be on the play of Spence, on like the quality of the play of Spencer Rattler. If he's going to play like that, and through 2 weeks he's been really competitive, brought the Saints down with a chance to win at the end both times, and it just never quite worked out. So I think that's one of the big takeaways for the Saints, though, is I don't think they're the worst team in the NFL. And I sort of talked about this coming into the year where it really is rare that the team that we all think is just going to be the worst and they just don't have a chance. It really is rare that that actually plays out. Like usually these guys have some pride and they have some competitive spirit, and the Saints are really showing it. And I think that eventually they're going to get one of these games to go their way. They started off, the NFC West teams are better than the NFC South teams, except for maybe Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's good. But other than that, like the Saints are going to have their opportunities and they're going to get a couple of wins. And they competed hard. And I know it sucks because it's like we lost to basically the most vulnerable possible version of San Francisco. And not to mention, everybody's talking about how 49ers fans came in, took over the Superdome. Like, there's a whole lot of things that would be annoying for the Saints. But they should hold their head high in the regards of they really, really fought hard. And I think that that's going to continue throughout the year. And I think eventually it's going to pay off. And once again, like I said, if you're not a team competing for the Super Bowl and you're like the Saints are just entering a rebuild. Like they finally just accepted that it's where they are. They're entering a rebuild with a new head coach and all this kind of stuff. They're trying to figure out if they have a quarterback. They're trying to figure out who on this roster is actually going to be here. Who are guys that we're going to have to move on from? Who can we trade for other things? Like this is a year about evaluation for the Saints. And the good news is that it seems that regardless of everything else, their culture is still to be really, really tough and competitive and gritty. And I'm sure there will be a game or two in there where they get absolutely blown out. I'm sure there will. But to see those guys actually go out there and lay it on the line, it was good to see because it's really easy to get disheartened when you look around. You're like, we don't have that much talent. Nobody believes in it. Like it's really easy to get down on yourself, and I don't think that's what the Saints have done. On to the 49ers. Health is going to continue to be the story of the year for San Francisco. But on a positive note, they started the year with 2 consecutive road games, one against an NFC West opponent and once against an in-conference opponent. Both of them notorious for having really difficult home stadiums to play in. 49ers fans traveled well to both, but which is something that happens a lot. But the fact that they could start the year with 2 road wins despite their injuries, it gives them a little bit of a buffer to actually get healthy, which is sort of going to start coming together probably somewhere around week 5 to week 6. If they can get to week 5 and week 6 in like the 3-2 range, I mean they have Arizona at home this week. They get their first home game. If they were to win that game, for example, this team's all of a sudden in a really good position where they could drop a game or two and likely will. Like I don't think they're going to get to week 5 or 6 and be undefeated with the state of their roster right now. But the fact that they've pulled out 2 really gritty wins despite their injuries, they've given themselves a buffer and they've given themselves a chance to get healthy and make a real playoff push. And the other thing we've seen now twice, which is different than the previous 2 years, this defense has now closed the game twice for the 49ers, particularly their pass rush. Nick Bosa came up with another huge sack in this game, and then Bryce Huff seals it on the last drive with a sack. I think it was the fastest sack all year so far. I think he got home in 2 seconds and forced the fumble, game over. But San Francisco's defense has now shown in 2 consecutive weeks that they're capable of finishing games and not just letting teams go straight down the field and all of a sudden you lose on the last drive. They've now won twice with their defense, which I think is big, especially given how young that group is. Over the course of the year, they're likely just to get better. So I think that's big as well. But for San Francisco, as long as they create a buffer for them to sort of get healthy, they are as viable as anybody. And as for New Orleans, once again, I know people don't want to hear about moral victories, but the fact that this team is really laying it all out there and you're getting good play from Spencer Rattler, I think you got to leave that game with at least some positives. Okay. Browns and Ravens. Once again, nobody's really surprised by this one. Ravens win 41-17. And I know that the Browns felt a little disrespected by the fact that they weren't favored or that they were underdogs by double digits, especially given that I think it's like they'd won the last couple or something like that. Like they'd had decent success against Baltimore. But let's be realistic here. Baltimore is one of the better teams in the entire league. And especially after what happened last week, Baltimore is going to come into this game pretty particularly pissed off. And they showed it. And credit to the Browns in terms of this. They did a really, really good job keeping it close for the majority of the game. It got away from them. The Ravens scored 21 of their 41 in the fourth quarter. And really, they scored 31 of their 41 in the second half. So through a half, they were able to keep it 10-3, which not easy to do against Lamar Jackson. But if you really want a perfect stat as to why the Browns lost, look no further than Joe Flacco threw the ball 45 times. If you were the Cleveland Browns, that cannot happen. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Quinshon Judkins made his debut, 10 carries, 61 yards. That's a pretty good average, but I also understand, he's been out. He doesn't have the experience. He's still trying to learn the offense. You're trying to phase him in, like all that kind of stuff. I get it. You just have to stick to the run more. If for no other reason than it takes time and it allows your defense to rest. And for the Browns, if they're going to win games, it's going to be on the back of their defense. If the Browns win any game this year where their opponent scores 41 points, I will be absolutely flabbergasted. Knocked down, completely floored, surprised. Myles Garrett is one of the best players in the league. Mason Graham is one of the more highly touted young defensive prospects to come out at defensive tackle in a while. So they have a really good front. JOK is a great linebacker. I think Denzel Ward was dealing with cramps or something like that in this game. But the Browns have a talented group on that side of the ball. I know Kevin Stefanski is an offensive head coach. I know that every team wants to score points. If you are the Cleveland Browns, a huge part of your offense has to be that we have to be able to keep our defense fresh. Because frankly, it's way more likely that they're going to be the reason we win. And that simply got away from them. And I think, let's see, what was time of possession? What was that looking like? Honestly, it's shocking. It was basically even. The Browns actually had the ball for longer. But overall, I mean, it just didn't feel like that. Like, it felt like Baltimore just steamrolled them, with the exception of the rushing offense. Like, Derrick Henry did not have a rushing game, essentially. What did Derrick Henry have? Derrick Henry had 11 carries for 23 yards. I'm sure fantasy owners, when they first saw 41 points on the board for the Ravens, were like, wow, I had a great day with Derrick Henry. Then they checked and were sorely disappointed. But that 23 yards led the team. And overall, it's one of those things where they bottled up the rushing attack, and then ultimately things just got away from them. And Lamar Jackson didn't even have to do anything super crazy in terms of yardage, like only 225 yards, but 4 touchdowns in those 225 yards. So the Ravens were simply hyper efficient in the passing game in the second half. And once again, there's not much takeaway if you're the Ravens. You kicked the ass of a team that's clearly worse than you. That's what you're supposed to do. And they offensively, they look like they did in week 1. They're going to be a great offensive team. Big surprise. Defensively, you clamp down on the Browns. I need to see you do it against somebody a little bit better, kind of like the Bills defense also. Like, those two defenses still have something to prove to me, although I have a tendency to have a little more faith in the Ravens defense. But it's just, I feel like the Browns just misplayed this game in terms of strategy. You cannot be throwing the ball like that and expect to beat Baltimore. Bears Lions. The Ben Johnson returning home to Detroit game. It was not the most illustrious of homecomings for him. The Bears scored 21 points and lost to the Lions, who scored, oh, I'm sorry, that's not a typo, 52 points. Yeah, that's an ass kicking of all ass kickings in a lot of ways. And it does make you question a whole lot of things about the Bears, and as a result, as we'll talk about later, the Vikings as well. Bears offense. Once again, they did pretty well to start the game. And that right there, at least to me, still very much highlights the fact that Ben Johnson is doing a good job with the game script. You know? Like, they're doing a really good job just, these are the plays we design, these are the plays that we think are going to work against this defense. They're doing a great job with those plays, which shows that Ben Johnson still knows how to coach offense. But just like against Minnesota, as soon as they got out of that script, and it's more game flow, it's more situational, it's all those kinds of things, the Bears just stopped executing. It wasn't going well. And Caleb Williams had a really, really ugly interception in there where he's running around, he heaves it, sails it right to Kirby Joseph. And it's plays like that. It's like you can't have those plays. He needs to have so much more touch on those passes. That's what that offense is all about. It's touch passes. It's quick decisions. We get the ball out. We get the ball to our playmakers. If we're looking for positives for the Bears, Rome Odunze looks like he's made a lot of growth from year 1 to year 2. Plugging him into this offense, Rome Odunze seems to be doing well. And I think DJ Moore is doing fine as well, where he had another 5 catches, but Odunze led the Bears on the day with 7 receptions, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's about as well as you could hope for. DeAndre Swift led them in rushing with 63 yards and a touchdown, but it's too little too late. And the other problem for the Bears now is, call it health, call it the Lions offense woke up. That Bears defense has now, ever since the fourth quarter against Minnesota, not been able to stop anything. And I'm concerned about that, because kind of like the Browns, I don't think the Bears are going to be winning games. Like, anytime that we're going to get a team scoring 50 on us, we're probably going to lose. I mean, and I suppose that's obvious for anybody, but I don't think the Bears are in a scenario where they want to be in shootouts. Not this year anyways, but there's just something off. Caleb Williams is just missing just a little bit too much, and I've got no problem giving them time. It's a complicated offense. It requires a lot. He basically, his rookie year was completely wasted by everything else going on in Chicago. I understand all that. But man, it just feels like he's missing the easy things, and he panics, and it seems like he's like he seems like he's drowning as soon as they get outside of the script. And it's just weird, because I want the Bears to do well, because I think really highly of Ben Johnson, and I love the history of the Bears, like just with their defensive toughness, all that kind of stuff. I want things to work out for the Bears, but this felt like a definite step backwards, although I do think we just need to quantify it with, I get the feeling week 1 is going to be the anomaly for the Lions. And credit to the Packers, all of a sudden their week 1 win looks a whole lot better now, doesn't it? But I don't think Detroit's going to score 52 every week, but I do think the Lions offense is still one of the more talented groups in the entire league. I think that they came out and got smacked in week 1, but I think they're going to look a whole lot closer to this most of the year than they are to week 1. Lions defense, especially once they got up, they're clearly very good at situational pass rushing, where we'll see how it works in these sort of close games where it's not so obvious that a team has to pass. But I do think that, they got 4 sacks on the Bears and gave up none. So at the very least, They were able to out pass rush Chicago. And Aiden Hutchinson got his first sack after being back from the broken leg, which is always good to see. I think we need a little bit more time with the Lions to really get an idea of where they are in the overall hierarchy of things. But anybody who was predicting the demise of the Detroit Lions was likely overreacting a bit. Broncos and Colts. Oh boy. So, as somebody who knows a lot of Broncos fans, this game was a little bit funny. Only because of that crazy way it ended. I will say this. It felt like a game where these two teams played each other to a draw in a lot of ways, but that Denver was a bit better than them. Like, they had more opportunities to just slam the door. And by sheer weirdness, it just didn't happen. And Indy manages to win at the end of one of the more stunning sequences. But let's start here. We'll start with Indianapolis. Number one, Daniel Jones played well again. The Colts offense played well again against a much, much better defense. So I'm willing to lean on the side of the Colts probably are just going to have a good offense this year. The star of the show today, though, despite Daniel Jones playing well, Jonathan Taylor. 25 carries, 165 yards. And, I mean, no touchdown. Go figure. But the Broncos just, they were missing tackles all over the place. He was out running them. For a defense that's young and fast and all those things, like Denver has all the hallmarks of a defense that's supposed to be great. It was a rough day at the office for them. You also see Tyler Warren. He looks like he's going to be a really good player. Really good player. Another good game. Week 1, he flashed a lot too. This game, same thing. I saw him winning routes against Patrick Surtain. That's not very common for tight ends. So really, really good signs there from the Colts in their offense. As for the Broncos, their offense played a lot better as well. Defensively, not so good a game. We're going to have to just sort of keep watching that. I'm pretty sure the Denver defense is good. Just sort of a bad day at the office. But you never know. Bo Nix played better in this game. I wouldn't say he lit it up. I mean, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick, although that pick was a dagger. But much more efficient overall. Definitely not as bad as week 1, which I don't think any of us thought they could possibly do. But it did feel like in the big moments when they really, really needed it, they just weren't able to get it done. And that was a little bit disappointing. That interception came at a crucial time when the Broncos were really trying to get up and get ahead and put the Colts in a really tough spot, throws the pick. And then a little bit later, they're able to get in the field goal range, but they sort of mess it up. They're doing dumb stuff. We're spiking the ball. We're backing up. Like, it's just kind of undisciplined and sloppy there. The Will Lutz goes for the kick, bounces right off the upright, and all of a sudden the Colts have life. And then let's get to the sequence that we all know about. The Colts drive. They don't drive particularly far, even. And they go for a 60-yard kick to end the game. The field goal goes up, and it is, I believe it was wide right and far short. Like, no chance anywhere. Not even close. Broncos win, right? We're all happy. Flag on the play. Oh. When I tell you, I was telling people we need to put out wellness checks on Broncos fans at that point. We all knew what was going to happen. They kick the field goal 15 yards closer, and they win the game. So what the call was a leverage call on the Broncos. And that is basically, as I understand it, the long snapper snapped the ball, and in the process of one of the Broncos guys going to get his hands up to try to block it, he put his hands on the long snapper and sort of like pushed a bit to try to like get up and do it and block the kick. And you're not allowed to like use leverage of another player, particularly this, like the long snapper, to get up. So they called it. My overall thoughts on that, I'm not going to lie, frankly, I wouldn't have called it there. If it was something where the guy had blocked it, then I would say you call it, but uh, it felt like you handed the team a win when they didn't execute it all well down the stretch to really deserve to win. But I completely understand the argument of, did the guy do it? Yes, the guy did it, so you call it. But we'll get to that in another game here about the Eagles and the Chiefs, where there's a certain play that we all know and hate, that uh, certain things are called or not called every single time they run it, and it's so high leverage. The kick didn't even get close. I don't know. It just felt dirty. Not like in terms of it being rigged or anything like that, but it just felt like a gross call. And listen, it benefits the Colts, and the Colts played well. They did a lot of really good things, but I don't think it just leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth, I think, except Colts fans. So congratulations to them. Panthers, Cardinals, another game that we were all very excited to watch, right? This game felt like an ass kicking, even though the final score is 27-22. Up until pretty late in the game, this game was really like, it was 27-9. And then in the fourth quarter, Carolina decides to wake up and come to life and all of a sudden make this thing a game at the end. And then as soon as we get to crunch time, now we can't do anything on offense if you're Carolina. This is another game with some annoying officiating calls. Not that they were all like so blatant, or there was one that really changed the game like the Broncos Colts one, but it got to the point where it felt like anytime there's a play, it's like, and we got a flag and we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's just annoying. And I think we all have to remember this happens every year. Early in the year, they have things they want to emphasize. They're trying to make a point of, this is how we want the game to be played this year. So there's a lot of flags early in the year, every single year. That doesn't make it any less annoying when you're in those first couple weeks. But on to these two teams overall. If you're Arizona, you've played another really close game with a team you should have beat by more. However, you're 2-0, and you have a chance when you play San Francisco. One of those two teams is going to come out of that game 3-0 and at the top of the NFC West. So you have a great opportunity in front of you despite not actually playing all that well. But it is also possible that they're actually playing really well and then they just sort of left their foot off the gas. And that's something that you just need to learn to not do as you become a team that's going from losing games to winning games. You can't let your foot off the gas. And as far as Arizona is concerned, they do a lot of really good things. Trey McBride is an elite player. James Conner, really underrated back. Kyler Murray, kind of inconsistent, but on his good days, he is damn good. And until the fourth quarter, they were sort of putting it on the Panthers, and then they just sort of let up. And lucky for them, usually when that happens and momentum shifts, it's tough to get it back. So I'll give them credit for being able to put their foot back down and end it. But they made that a lot tougher on themselves than they should have, despite the fact that, they're 2-0 and they have a shot to do something pretty impressive and go to 3-0 and get to first place in the NFC West next week. As for Carolina, disappointing one. Once again, Bryce Young did not play particularly well until the end, and it's sort of tough to evaluate was he playing well because he figured out the Cardinals and was finally able to move the ball, or did he play well because the Cardinals let up and now they're playing more just soft shell defenses, they're willing to give up certain things underneath, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. That remains to be seen. The one thing I do know is I like how Teteroa McMillan is looking for the Carolina Panthers. I also know I don't like how Xavier Legette's looking for the Carolina Panthers. So that is a weird dynamic where I think overall you take it as a positive, where it looks like McMillan has the potential to be a very good player for Carolina and a real number one kind of weapon as given time to develop. But other than him, we're not looking at a whole lot. So if you're Carolina, credit for clawing your way back into this game. A lot of teams give up and just sort of say on to next week, but they didn't do that. So credit to them. But the Panthers have not shown a whole lot of signs of life yet, which is kind of disappointing in the third year with your number one overall pick quarterback, who sort of showed a lot of potential at the end of last year. Kind of tough not to be disappointed. But overall, Carolina, they're 0-2. It was a lot better effort today or on Sunday, but just not enough. Outside of McMillan, I'm not seeing enough on that Panthers offense to get excited about. Okay, Chiefs and Eagles. A game that was supposed to be really good, but was kind of boring. So, let's start with Philadelphia. They won this game 20-17 in Kansas City. They moved to 2-0. They have not necessarily been impressive in either game they played, but they have won both. So credit to them. One of the big things coming out of this game is the tush-push thing where now people are pulling clips of essentially the offensive line is false starting on every play, and they're doing this, they're doing that. I do think that that's ridiculous. I hate watching them in 3rd and 4th and short because we're not even really running a football play. Like, I like the quarterback sneak. I detest pushing him. I detest the shove. And I sort of detest it in general on offense. If I can't take a defensive guy and shove him through like the same way, or I can't take a defensive guy and let him just jump over the line of scrimmage early to counter what you're doing, then I don't like the play. So I don't love it like that. But overall, that just getting that out of the way, that's not the most important thing about this game. The Eagles, they don't appear to be as formidable as they were last year, although frankly, they didn't look that formidable till the end of last year anyways. So we still have a lot of time to see what Philly like completely rounds into. I do think it is notable that Jalen Hurts is still not throwing the football. Like, I think in this game, he got what? He got 101 passing yards? Cool. That is not enough. I kind of thought in this game we could get like an A.J. Brown resurgence game, but we did not. Saquon Barkley rushed the ball for 22 times for 88 yards. Got himself a touchdown. That's all well and good. The Eagles' offense is simply, they seem off. And that's something that I'm willing to overlook that for now. If they are still looking off by like week 4, week 5, like I'm willing to give the Eagles a little longer leash than other teams to figure this out. But if they're still looking like this around that time, I think we have to have a very different kind of conversation about what it is that they're doing on offense. Because right now, it feels like you've taken a Super Bowl champion roster and you're like asking all of those guys to play offense with the training wheels on. And I don't know why we're doing that. Like, who is that benefiting? It's not benefiting Jalen Hurts. It's not benefiting A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, certainly. It's not going to benefit Saquon Barkley in the long run because everybody's just going to like lock in to stop the run. And I'm sure they already kind of are prioritizing it, but if the Eagles are just going to play into that, then they're really going to do it. Like, I don't fully understand it. And I know they got a new offensive coordinator, and that could certainly be a big part of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. But I don't know why we're taking a team that just won the Super Bowl and is like kind of hoping to defend it and win back-to-back. Whatever you think of their chances to do that, you know, your temperature may vary, fair enough. But this is a team that's certainly talented enough to do it. I don't know why we are restraining that offense so much. It's weird, and I want to try to understand the logic behind it, but this feels like a team that should be able to threaten you any way they want to, and they don't. And I don't know why. So, from the Eagles' perspective, they're 2-0. That's good. But it just feels like they are like lowering their own ceiling, and I don't fully get it. I would love to hear from people. Tell me why you think the Eagles are playing with training wheels on offense. Like, is there an injury that I'm not aware of? Is there, like, does somebody not like somebody that I'm not aware of? Like, what is the philosophical reason why we are not letting this team spread their wings? But Good for the Eagles. They're 2-0. Chiefs. Okay. 0-2 for the first time in a long time. I think 2014 was the last time they were 0-2. Obviously, the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. I do not think that this is a situation where Kansas City fans need to be panicking. They lose to the Chargers in Brazil. Fair play. They probably would have liked to win that game, but it was in Brazil. It's international. The Chargers are good. They're a division opponent. Sometimes you're going to lose those games. Now you come home. Also, obviously, you'd like to win this one, especially if it was a close game, Super Bowl rematch, all that kind of stuff. Fair enough. But we also do need to remember they lose Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice is suspended, as Travis Kelce and some of the Chiefs receivers so elegantly reminded us with the free number 4 shirts they were wearing. And in case anybody doesn't know why he's suspended because him and his dumbass friends were drag racing in Dallas, crashed into a bunch of people, caused a bunch of injuries, fled the scene, and later got caught for it. And the NFL wanted to suspend him for much longer, but them and the Players Association agreed on 6 games. Nobody's really calling for him to not be suspended or anything like that. If anything, he got off quite light. It is a miracle they didn't kill somebody. So thank you, Mr. Swift, for that. But, that was stupid. But the Chiefs are undermanned. But they also started the year with 2 games that were pretty losable for any team. So I think we need to calm down a little bit. I understand it's fun. And believe me, it's fun. It's very fun that the Kansas City Chiefs are 0-2. But we also want to be realistic here. They have the New York Giants next week. They're about to be 1-2. They will win that game. If they don't win that game, I will be absolutely stunned. I think they have the Jaguars after that. Something like that. Let's see. Who do they have? They go Giants, and then they go Ravens. That could be bad. Then Jaguars. So 2-3 at worst, I would argue, after week 5. Is that where you want to be? No. But if you're Kansas City, and once again, you're waiting for reinforcements, all these teams that are sort of really waiting to get their roster pulled together, they just need to get to that juncture and just not have been too far gone. And if Kansas City just beats the Giants and beats the Jags, and then around that time, you're getting to the point where you could start having some guys coming back, and then week 7, Rice comes back. Kansas City is not likely to miss the playoffs, I don't think, barring injury. But I will say this. Offensively, clearly not talented enough anymore. They're not talented enough where they can lose a receiver or 2 and be fine. Travis Kelce's not the elite number 1 option that he used to be. And that's not really it's not his fault, quote unquote. I wouldn't say that it's not because he works hard, not because he wants to fall off. He's just getting older, man. You can just tell he's slower. And he obviously had the bad drop in the end zone, gives the Eagles the interception there, and that was really kind of the game. But I mean, Kansas City's defensive line is scaring me too, because it's basically feeling like Chris Jones and Friends, and the Friends aren't doing a whole lot else right now. They're young on the defensive line, but they also have guys like Karlaftis, who you'd hope would be making a little bit more impact. But I refuse to panic on the idea of the Kansas City Chiefs missing the playoffs until week 6. Then I'll start thinking about it. If they drop a game that they really shouldn't, if they were to drop a game to Jacksonville, or to the Giants. If they were to drop one of those 2 games, then I'll be worried. But these first 2 were always games they had the potential to lose. And they just so happened to lose them, much to the joy of all of us. So let's enjoy that. But I also want to keep it realistic. Patrick Mahomes is still a very, very good player. And Andy Reid is still a very, very good coach. It doesn't feel like they're pulling out these close games like they were. We all knew that they were getting pretty lucky last year to get the record they did. Feels like they're getting the other end of it this year, which is great. But if you're the Chiefs, keep your head above water until the reinforcements arrive, and you'll be fine. Sunday Night Football. Sunday night snooze fest. If you have insomnia, I found the cure. Falcons defeat the Vikings 22-6. Biggest takeaways. The Falcons moved the ball pretty well. Bijan Robinson made some superhuman plays. Such a good running back. Wish they would have let him get the touchdown instead of Tyler Algier. That would have helped my fantasy team. But overall, they moved the ball pretty well. Their biggest issue was they couldn't finish things in the red zone. Brian Flores in that defense, they dialed it up. They made it difficult. They had to kick a whole lot of field goals, especially for a guy coming in, like replacing Younghoe Koo in terms of kicking. The guy did a great job. John Parker Romo, no relation to Tony Romo. 5 for 5 in terms of field goals, giving them 18 points, including the extra points, with a long of 54 yards. So, kicker for MVP in this game, or either that or Bijan. The biggest thing here for the Falcons is you get to learn off of a win, which is great. They got to just finish drives more. If they finish drives, then you're not even giving teams a chance to, like, Minnesota for a long time was in one of those positions where we've played goddamn terrible, but if we can just put one drive together, this game is back within reach. And if you're Atlanta, that's what you got to be weary of, you know? When you're out playing a team so thoroughly throughout the majority of the game, you have to put real distance, because all of a sudden you let them get one play. You have one bad coverage bust. And then, wow, the Vikings have life. We have hope. Everything is going really well. And that, like, they outplayed us this whole entire time, and we just did one thing, and we've got it back now. So if you're Atlanta, it's about learning to put your foot on someone's throat and really, really stifling them offensively. Like, you don't let them, like, you need to put that kind of distance. And there were some good moments where Penix would make, like, a nice completion. Like, I remember there was one to Drake London who swiftly fumbled it. Like, there were moments in this game where Atlanta flashed a lot of potential. But this is a team that just needs to learn to finish. As for Minnesota, okay. Defensively, I think this was going about as well as you could ask for the most part. They were asked to do way too much on defense. Way too much. I think it was, I mean, it's pretty bad in terms of just sheer amount that, like, the Vikings defense was asked to, like, handle. They were on the field for 36 minutes. They were basically on this field for 40 minutes of a 60-minute game. That's too much. They wore down, and ultimately the fourth quarter is where Atlanta scored 10 points and really ended it, because before that it was like 6-12 for basically the whole game. And I think that by the end they were just tired. Obviously the story here is the Vikings offense, and more specifically J.J. McCarthy. So he has played 8 quarters now as the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. A team that we all agree is very talented, very well coached, and has the potential to win the Super Bowl or compete for the Super Bowl if they simply get good play from that position. And what did we see from him? I will give you all a second to guess. That's right. We got absolutely nothing. J.J. McCarthy, 11 for 21, 158 yards, and 2 interceptions. That's not going to cut it, obviously. If you are the Vikings, you're going to get a very interesting litmus test this upcoming week, because J.J. McCarthy leaves this game. We actually never left the game, but he comes out of the game, like, at the end of this thing with an ankle injury that apparently is going to, like, cost him a week. We're going to see Carson Wentz in this offense. If Carson Wentz comes out and just plays really, really good football, I think that you have to be pretty concerned if you're the Vikings, just about controversy. Just about, you know, the clamoring of the fan base. This is a fan base that was expecting to have a good year. This is a fan base that had really high hopes. And I think that if they believe Carson Wentz gives them the best chance, then they are going to ask for him to be the guy that's in this game. And I would say that they're not necessarily wrong in wanting such a thing. But man, JJ McCarthy, it's not good right now. And I know you have to give him time, and I think we all do need to give him time. And I have all the faith in the world that Kevin O'Connell, in particular, is absolutely the guy for the job. But he just looks like he's drowning. Like, you see this all the time during the game. So the way that NFL plays are designed, and I'm sure that most people know this, they're designed so you get the ball, right? You take your, whatever drop it is, 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, which rare, but they exist. The entire design of the play, this is what everybody talks about with timing when you're talking about offense. The intent is you hit the top of your drop. When your back foot hits on that 5th step, that 3rd step, 7th step, that is when you are supposed to just plant your foot and rip it. He gets to the top of his drops and he stops. He starts to do it. He clutches. He hitches again. He clutches. He hitches again. Maybe he's about to throw it, and then he gets sacked. Like, for every other quarterback with experience, they hit their drop and they rip it in that offense. And it's not happening. He needs to be able to just trust that the guy might not be open right now. I have to throw it to a spot, and he is going to be there because they always have been throughout the years with Minnesota. You're throwing to Justin Jefferson. You're throwing to TJ Hawkinson. You're going to have Jordan Addison in a couple of weeks. Like, the guys that they have, these are very capable receivers. You have to hit your drop and just throw. Because when you don't, now you're giving the defensive line a chance to really get home. You can't ask your offensive line to protect that long. It's not realistic. And his reluctance to just play within the structure of the offense, maybe not reluctance, but maybe just inability right now to play within the structure of the offense is their single biggest problem. And until that gets better, we're going to have some rough weeks from Minnesota. I have faith it will get better. I think they need to just, they made the choice. They need to be 10 toes down now about it's going to be J.J. McCarthy as soon as he's healthy. Because otherwise, you let Sam Darnold go, and now he's playing well in Seattle. You let Daniel Jones go. He's playing well in Indianapolis. Like, you made the choice. You got to stick with it, and you got to just hope the kid comes around. But through 2 weeks, outside of one quarter against what might not actually be a good Chicago defense, they've had trouble. And I will acknowledge that Brian Flores is a really smart defensive coach. Really smart. It's complicated all the time. Like, blitzes from everywhere. He stifles some of the best minds in football in terms of like offensive minds. I get it. But that's also who he's practicing against every day. So you'd think that everything would be easier. I mean, in terms of Atlanta, they're young. It's James Pierce, it's Jalen Walker. Like, when you practice against a Brian Flores defense, you might not be getting looks that are conventional. So maybe that sort of like stifles you a bit, but it should also just make it more simple. I don't know. Like, it's tough to explain. I think there's just the only thing you can really like lay it at the feet of is youth, but you're not going to get a tougher coach to practice against than Flores. You're not going to get a better coach to help develop you than O'Connell. So, I mean, at this point, it's just wait and see. But through 2 games, it's tough. And we're going to see Carson Wentz. And if he plays well, I mean, I think we're going to have a potentially awkward situation in Minnesota. Okay, Monday night, doubleheader. 2 pretty interesting games. Buccaneers and Texans. Really close game. Buccaneers win at the very, very end, 20-19. They both start off hot. They open up with touchdown drives. They each get one more scoring drive after that. Houston with a field goal. Tampa Bay with another touchdown. Then after that, nobody does a goddamn thing until the fourth quarter, where things just got really crazy at the end. I think the biggest thing to take away from this, from Tampa Bay, number one, Baker Mayfield's a really good quarterback. And if you're the Browns, you got to be feeling pretty freaking stupid. This team's really gritty. They're really tough. They are finding ways to win. And I am concerned about their offensive line issues. They had some injuries. Lost the right tackle. I think it's Gadecki, the right tackle. He went out. Backup comes in. Will Anderson just feasts on him. That was really a story of this game, was offensive lines getting their ass kicked. But as for Tampa Bay, you at least have reason for optimism, where Tristan Wirfs is going to come back, and then all of a sudden, we get to have the best one of the. I mean, you're splitting hairs, I guess, but a guy who has an argument to be the best left tackle in the NFL, he gets to take his spot. They got the center, usually the starting center. He's playing left tackle because he's super versatile. He gets to slide back to his natural center position. And then hopefully Gadecki gets back healthy, even with that god-awful fucking helmet cover. Hopefully he gets back, and then the offensive line is set. But it's definitely showed in this game that they aren't healthy, and when you go against Houston, the last thing you want is to not be healthy on the offensive line. But as for Tampa Bay on the whole, they're just a damn good team, man. And they're a team that understands how to win. They understand how to be timely. They understand how to not shoot themselves in the foot for the most part. Houston, on the other hand, Houston, we have a problem. And it is that offensive line, because there are not reinforcements coming. That is just a bad group. And I know that everybody's going to talk about CJ Stroud. Is CJ Stroud the reason the Texans are playing bad on offense? Not entirely. He's obviously not playing well, but a huge part of that is that offensive line is not picking up stunts. They're not picking up basic blitzes. They're not even winning against four-man rushes. They are not able to protect a goddamn thing. And there are not very many quarterbacks in the history of this league that, behind a terrible, terrible offensive line, just play out of this world great. Especially young guys. So is CJ Stroud playing impressive football? No. But there is also a lot of reasoning for it. I know that Bobby Slowick is somewhere just laughing. That's the Texans offensive coordinator from last year, who they fired because the offensive line regressed and CJ Stroud didn't play as well his second year. He's somewhere laughing because all these problems are still there and maybe worse. The Texans are in a world of trouble on offense until they figure out either how to improve that offensive line, probably via trade, and to get a good offensive lineman, you're going to have to pay a pretty hefty price, or they got to get smart here, where it's like, we got to run the ball. It's got to be play action. It's got to be quick game. Our goal with the passing game can't be that like we're going to start off with pure drop back and try to hit deeper routes. Nope. You've got to find ways to put defensive linemen on their heels and not let them just tee off on you, because you do not have the personnel. You simply don't. But ugly loss for the Texans, because they go all the way down, they get the score, everybody's feeling good, and then Tampa Bay goes right down and answers, and Buccaneers win. So if you're the Texans, though, and the Colts are 2-0, and the Jags are 1-1, and, well, the Titans are right there with you at 0-2, but you've got to be feeling kind of nervous about how you're looking compared to the Colts in particular. So, not great day to be a Texan, and pretty damn good day to be a Buccaneer. Last one, Chargers, Raiders. Another one where this went about as you expect. I know they both won in week one, but let's be very clear. The Chargers are a much better team than the Raiders, for a couple of reasons in particular. Number one, their defense is just so much more talented. They're much tougher. They play more physical. They play like how Jim Harbaugh would want them to play. Potential huge injury for them. Khalil Mack left the game. I don't fully know what happened to him, but it was with an arm injury. Went for a tackle. His own guy went in, got the hit, hyperextended the arm. Looks like he might have broken the arm. So I'll have to wait and see about that. But other than that, though, great day for the Charger defense. 3 interceptions, including one on the very first play of the game. Really set the tone. And then the other reason that they're so much better than the Raiders and are, in my mind, a legitimate contender at this point, and I want to be very clear, I was kind of down on them before the year. I wasn't quite sure how their receiving core was going to come together, and the answer is apparently very, very well. But Justin Herbert is playing great football. I can only think of one pass yesterday where it was like, whoa, didn't see that one well, because he threw one right to a linebacker. The guy just didn't catch it. But the Chargers, just from start to finish, they outplayed the Raiders. They beat up the Raiders. They out-physical the Raiders. They out-coached the Raiders. They out-everything the Raiders. The only moment it felt like the Raiders ever had a chance is near the end of the game. They go to hand off the ball to Marion Hampton, and Max Crosby's right there, and Hampton just never really gets the handle on the ball because he's staring down Max Crosby, and then he fumbles the ball. Raiders get it back, and then they're just immediately stopped. No matter what the Raiders were doing, they just can't do anything. And I know that the one thing everybody's talking about right now, Ashton Jeanty. Why isn't Jeanty getting going? I think if you were going into this year thinking Ashton Jeanty was going to fix the Raiders offense, then you were, I'll say it nicely, you're an optimist. Running backs are not going to fix an offense. They're not going to even fix the run game. What a great running back does is they take a situation that is ready and functional, and then they make it elite. They can't take a team that is going to give up the lowest amount of yards before contact and turn that into a great running game. That will not happen. That does not happen, especially with a rookie running back. And that's exactly what's going on with the Raiders. They are not run blocking well at all. He's not getting the opportunities, and then they're down and they have to throw. And it's just, I understand why people want running backs. They're a very important weapon if your team is ready for them. But the Raiders were not that kind of team. And that's why I don't think Jeanty was going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. They don't have the infrastructure to support a running back being that dominant. And he had plays in that game where he flashed why he's going to be good. He made a lot of guys miss. He broke through tackles. He did a whole bunch of stuff. He even made Derwin James miss. And Derwin James is one of the better players in the league, especially hitters and tacklers. You're not going to get a whole lot better than Derwin James. But Jeanty, 11 carries, 43 yards, 3.9 an attempt. That's probably going to be most of the year. Now, he'll have a game in there, no doubt, or several, where he'll get to that 100-yard mark. And they'll have games where they get what they want, but this is not a team where the infrastructure was in place for him to come in and have a dominant rookie running back year. And unfortunately, that's just never quite acknowledged enough about running backs, where they can be so important and they can make such an impact. But just like wide receivers, they're reliant on a lot of other things going well. Otherwise, they can be stifled. And that's what's happening in Vegas with Jeanty. So I think big picture here, Chargers are looking like they could be legitimate contenders. And so I'm real curious about them, especially, who do the Chargers have next week? I think, the Chargers have the Broncos next week. So the Chargers have the opportunity to do something very unique. You beat the Chiefs, you beat the Raiders, you could beat the Broncos next week. If they beat all three division teams in the first 3 weeks, that's a pretty commanding lead on the division right away. I mean, because each game's essentially a win and a half, because that team doesn't just have to beat you. If you have the tiebreaker, they have to clear you entirely. And if you have 2 wins on it, you have 1 win on them, it makes it a whole lot more difficult. So if the Chargers can beat the Broncos, they are absolutely in a very strong position to go and take the AFC West. So I'm pretty interested to see about them. And as for the Raiders, once again, this is a rebuilding year. And I think that if you're the Raiders, you take some solace in the fact that you have Brock Bowers. As much as you might not get the production you were necessarily hoping for, you do have Jeanty. Geno Smith had a pretty uncharacteristically bad game. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, but he's not as bad as he played yesterday. Pete Carroll's got that ship stabilized. There's reason for hope in Vegas going forward, but I don't think they're likely going to beat a ton of the good teams this year. But both teams are on an upward trajectory. One team was just a little bit more talented and has been for a few years. And that wraps up week 2 of the 2025 NFL season. So I hope everybody had a good weekend, and I hope you're all excited about week 3. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe, and have a great evening. Cheers.